recently read through 2,500 pages of internal DFO communications about what to do about the problem with sea lice on salmon farms. This was a really disturbing read because while the Minister of Fisheries clearly saw the problem and he told DFO to make tougher sea lice regulations, and DFO staff set out to do that, senior management in DFO appear to have sided with industry, and because they held the pen, they actually made the problem worse. So DFO staff recommended fines. They recommended reducing the number of fish in the farms and just canceling licenses for farms that could not control their lice. They provided graphs to senior management showing that the lice numbers on the farms was rising year after year. And so they said there had to be a limit on the total number of lice in the farm, not just per fish, but per farm. They started with 1 million adult stage lice per farm. When they ran into resistance on that, they suggested 2 million, and then 2.5, and then 3 million. But the fish farmers said no. They wanted bigger farms, and they knew that meant more lice, so they would not agree to a limit of even 3 million adult lice per farm. DFO staff found themselves in an impossible situation. They were caught between what the farmers wanted and the protections that the minister and First Nations were demanding. They told senior management repeatedly that they needed science on the impact of sea lice on sockeye so that they could stand up to the industry. Well, what is so shocking is that DFO had this science. They knew that 10 sea lice on a juvenile sockeye was causing profound and acute impact. But DFO's director of science never provided this paper to her staff or to the Fish Health Committee that I was on, tasked to provide advice on strengthening the sea lice regulations. DFO staff even unknowingly went to the very scientist who had done this work, and he did not even tell them that he had evidence that the sea lice were critically harming young sockeye. Industry was allowed to review and comment on the draft regulations, and senior management wrote the final copy. On March 1st, 2020, the new regulations were issued as per the minister's requests, and the fish farmers received permission to have as many lice as they wanted for 42 days or 6 weeks every time they exceeded the limit. Instead of fines, they got permission. A few months later, 50% of the farms in the Discovery Islands took advantage of this and exceeded their lice limits, and 99% of the young sockeye trying to get to sea were profoundly impacted. Now, given the deep trouble that this industry is facing in British Columbia, I can only assume that they are doing their best to keep their lice under control. But with no regulations impacting them, this is what fish farm management of sea lice looked like on wild fish that were trying to get past the farms in 2020. The Fraser River sockeye are going extinct. Only 27 returned to Shuswap. Only 20 returned to Seton Lake, and 111, which was once a huge fishery, returned to Cultus Lake. In December, the Minister of Fisheries finally listened to First Nations and made the most important decision ever in the history of Fraser River sockeye, telling Maui, Cermak, and Grieg that they were not allowed to put any more farm salmon into the Discovery Islands and that their licenses would not be renewed. The companies responded by suing the minister and saying they will be filing an injunction to put more Atlantic salmon into the Discovery Islands this spring. Unfortunately, the regulations imposed by senior DFO management remain in place, which means that if the fish farmers win in court, we can expect the same impact on the young sockeye this year as happened last year. What has changed is that when the fish farmers go back to court, this time the minister will no longer be sitting with them. She will be sitting with First Nations. Will this be enough to keep the farms away from the young sockeye? Well, we will see.